Hello, Ohio. Welcome to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton, a retirement specialist of Axim Planning and Wealth right here in Ohio. I am your host, Spike Spengel. Every week, Tim, we try to tackle retirement planning solutions. Not just the questions, just the noise out there, but what we can do about these things. And you know what? We've talked about this retirement blueprint that Tim brings up all of the time. He's actually the creator of it himself. And I want to talk a little bit more about estate planning because it tends to be the fifth wheel in our spoke over here, but I want to open up spending some time about it. Okay. And the estate planning isn't just for those of you who have $50 million or $100 million. And with this, when we think of estate plan, estate is what you have.
Well, you've got to define what estate planning is. And, you know, this is a borrowed definition, but I think a good definition. Estate planning is simply this. It's when you take care of the ones you love, both when you're living and after you've passed away. It gives what you want to who you want, when you want, the way you want, with the least amount of fees possible. That's it in a nutshell. And I understand there's a lot more complexity there, but that's really it. I mean, it's about making sure that the ones we love are taken care of. At the very beginning there, I said, while we're living and after we've passed away. There's been so many situations that we've had in our office where, you know, someone loses a spouse and then they maybe get Alzheimer's or they become disabled and they don't have a plan in place and they actually have to go through living probate. So it's probate for who's going to take care of them because they didn't have the documents in place to do so. Right,
and it doesn't have to be incredibly complicated.
No.
Sometimes it can be a hour conversation, you know, who's going to take care of whom. I'd like to ask you a little bit about those directives and those decisions. I think the assumption is that if I pass away, my spouse will make all of the decisions, but you just brought up another subject. What if we're not in the capacity to be making those kinds of decisions?
Exactly, or what if you're on your way to Florida and there's an accident and you're hospitalized? Who's going to make those healthcare decisions for you? Who's going to pay your bills while you're in the hospital? Those two areas are covered under what's called a power of attorney. There's a healthcare power of attorney and a financial power of attorney. And it's basically you taking a look at, and we're a big fan of if your kids are at an age and a maturity level that you trust them to make the right decisions, that is always our first choice, is to be able to use the kids. But the whole idea here, you know, is who do I pick? Like, you know, I've got 4 kids.
Do you independently pick a lawyer? Do you pick one of the 3 kids, one of the 2 kids? I mean, how do you choose? I know that with my one grandmother, she picked my father to help with the financial choices. She picked the daughter, my aunt, to take care of the medical choices. And that split, divide and conquered there.
Well, it's not just that, it's their area of expertise. And so a lot of times we have somebody in the family that maybe has some medical background or medical expertise, or you know what, they just make great decisions under pressure. They're able to not get emotional, they're able to think about things logically. That person that just popped in your head, that's your medical power of attorney person. And then a lot of times we have one of our kids that's just good with money. They're good with their finances, they're good with budgeting, they make very good decisions, maybe they're tech savvy. That person that just popped in your head, that's your financial power of attorney. It's that easy. We're picking personalities to match the need of the power of attorney.
What about down the road? Spouse has passed away, it's just myself. Do you pass any of that on to a financial advisor or a lawyer or someone outside of the family? What happens if we don't have those family options?
Okay, so when you're talking about a trust or a power of attorney and maybe you don't have a family member that you feel comfortable with, there is the option of what we call a corporate trustee. A lot of times this is in a bank, maybe sometimes it could be an attorney, but we have those options, but that really is our last resort, Spike. We really want to try and keep it in the family, even if it ends up being a brother or a sister or someone along those lines. The reason why we like the kids is they're younger. right? So when we pick somebody to be a trustee or a power of attorney that's the same age as we are, if that's our only option, that still works, but then we're going to have a backup trustee. And we can have as many backup trustees as we want. So we can literally go down in order of, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. And if one of those people are not available or not willing to serve in that capacity at that time, it goes to the next one. So having a list of people is really helpful when we're trying to design that estate plan.
Well, let's talk about the stuff. Let's talk about the dollars. Let's talk about how we do leave this behind. Let's maybe jump over the spouse. Let's assume that we're going to take care of it. With the kids, having those conversations. Do you want to inherit the lake house? How do we split something like a property between 3 kids? Do we leave equal amounts of money to each 3 of the kids, even though we know that one is less responsible? Do we start to use trust? How do we do the leaving portion of it to it if we're fortunate enough to do that for our families?
I had 2 conversations last week, and one of them was a lake house. So it's funny that you brought that up. In this scenario, we had there's 3 kids. They all love the lake house. And so we were talking about, how they could each inherit a share. And in this particular instance, our attorney in office had suggested we put it into an LLC. Each of the kids own a third of the LLC. That way they could sell their portion if they wanted to, but they could only sell it to one of the other siblings, or at least they had the first right of refusal for it. And that worked out real well for transitioning the asset. The question that came up in the planning was, now how do we pay for the expenses of the lake house?
Because we got to do that equally.
The taxes are high. The upkeep of the property on a lake house is much higher than the normal house. We have the seawall, we have the dock, we have a lot of things that deteriorate because of water that'll need to be replaced. And so we really walked through that scenario with them and trying to figure out, where could we put maybe a piece of money within the trust that would continue to pay those expenses forever, multi-generationally.
Right. So we want to talk about, how do we do that between siblings and, are they able to take care? And it's nice when everybody's around, but sometimes the kids are all around the country in different places. Now, the attorney part of it. I'm assuming with all that you do, Tim Lofton, our weekly hour-long radio show, our TV show here, but more importantly, all that you do with the firm of Axim Planning and Wealth, are you also an estate planning attorney?
I am not. I have not been to Harvard Law School or anything exciting like that, but we do have an estate planning attorney in office, and then we actually have another one at our satellite location. And, this comes into... These guys get involved pretty heavily with our clients right at the beginning because there's usually an estate planning need. The big one is a trust. You said at the beginning of this segment, this isn't something that you should consider with a lot of wealth that you have to have $50 million or something to have a trust. If you have stuff that you want to pass on and you want to avoid probate, and
you don't want the judge or estate deciding for you where your stuff goes.
Because that's what you do, right? If I don't have an estate plan, essentially my elected officials in Columbus, Ohio are deciding how your stuff gets split up. And I don't think anybody wants that, right? I mean, listen, if you're at home right now and you don't have an estate plan, don't feel bad. 70% of America has no plan at all, so you're in good company. The question is, now that you've thought about it, now that we've brought it to your attention, what are you going to do about it? If you have a question of, should I get a trust? Should I not have a trust? How can I pass things on? Maybe you have a special needs child at home or a special needs grandchild that you need help with the planning of. Perhaps you're even in a situation where maybe one of the kids shouldn't inherit a lump sum of money because it wouldn't be good for them or for you. These are all things that we can offer a solution. The solution is this: pick up the phone and give us a call. 855-684-3485. Let us sit down for a complimentary review of your estate plan and see if we can't help.
Tim, we're going to take that very short break right now. Call so you can get your own retirement blueprint started. Absolutely complimentary for you and your family, but you need to reach out to us, or I'll give you another option. If you see that QR code down on the bottom of the screen, take out your phone, open it up to the camera function, and point it at that black and white box. When it activates, you click on it, and it'll take you right over to Tim's website, Axim Planning and Wealth, or call the phone number 855-684-3485. Get your own retirement blueprint. Your income strategy, including estate planning and taxes, are complimentary, but you need to reach out to us. More with Tim Lofton and the Retirement Blueprint Show when we get back right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axim Planning and Wealth. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Today we're talking a little bit about estate planning because we tend not to pay as much attention to it. It's usually one of the later planning things. It can be exciting, though. We start to think about what we get to leave behind. How about this part, too? Do you talk a little bit about estate planning as far as gifting while we're still alive, as opposed to just leaving this behind when we're no longer here?
Absolutely. It's funny, and it's just age of clients, right? And so somebody comes in and they talk about how they're going to pass money on to the kids. And, one of the things that always comes up is like, do you understand what their age is going to be when you pass away, at least based on, the actuarial estimates? I mean, if you think about it, if you're 85, 90 years old, your kids are 65. We don't think of it that way.
Maybe they can finally go out and get that Corvette.
Right. And so, that's discussion one is, do we want to wait? If we have money that is left over, that's extra, we've done all of our planning, and there's additional dollars there that honestly we don't need, is there an opportunity there to go ahead and do some things now? Or is there a situation where maybe gifting part of that money outside of our estate, protecting it from nursing home, may make sense? The other area is when we're looking at the idea of, just what we have, what we've accumulated, is what is the future tax problem there as well within that conversation.
Yeah. Tim, I'm sorry, I just thought of something. It was a follow-up question from the story you told in the first segment. You were talking about through estate planning, 3 kids, they were to inherit the lake house. They actually set up some income stream to be able to take care of taxes. Right. And the other thing, though, that I'm worried about there, I don't know why my brain went to this, but what about protections from lawsuits? Was the house put into a trust? And if so, does that protect? So let's say one of the kids, unfortunately, gets in a terrible car accident and their insurance doesn't cover enough of it. Could they lose that asset in total for the other siblings as well?
Yes, they absolutely can. And that has happened. We have seen it. 30 years of doing this, we've seen some bad things that have happened because of lack of planning. Now, in their case, I mentioned they put the lake property in an LLC, and LLC laws in Ohio are fantastic. They offer a high degree of protection. The trust alone would not protect the asset. but the LLC will. So we own the LLC, then we can own the LLC inside of the trust.
So the inherited house itself became an LLC?
Yes.
By having proper plan.
Correct.
See, I never would have thought of. I thought, okay, let's put it in the trust. What happens there? But you're saying even assets inside there.
Yeah. So you set up the LLC, that protects the property from that scenario, and then the shares of the LLC can be owned inside of the trust.
Okay. So this kind of, so that was just one scenario. Typically, when you have folks come into your office, are they even prepared to start the conversation with estate planning? Do we married couples with kids even come in with a will?
We do. A lot of times, understand, we specialize in retirement. So most of the people that we're seeing are coming in at, 50, 55, 60 years old to have these conversations. And they usually do have some semblance of an estate plan or a will, maybe some power of attorneys. My follow-up question is always, how old is that? And a common answer is it's 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old. And, the good news is they also say, and that's why we're here. We heard about this on the radio show, or we heard about it on TV, and we thought, we've got to get this updated. We have to, kind of bring this to the present day where there's not a 1970 or 1980 attached to the document.
Yeah. So if you've done estate planning, please make sure that you also update it from time to time. You have births, deaths in the family.
If it's more than 7 years old right now, there has been enough legislative change in Ohio that it makes sense to have somebody put some eyes on it.
Right. Now, you talk about the different professionals that you have. So you, the retirement specialist, you've created the retirement blueprint. You've got estate planning attorney. You've got tax specialist. Do you personally, or do you have teams and pods of people who kind of coordinate then each individual family? Or do they kind of get passed off to the different groups inside the office? How does it work?
Well, it's a team process. And so obviously if we're having an estate planning meeting, that is its own thing, and is typically one of the team members at Axim plus an estate planning attorney, so that they're getting the full picture there. Sometimes the tax planning piece is also a part of that conversation. It really is driven by what somebody needs and what the decision is. The big takeaway is that everyone is familiar with the client. Everyone is on board with what the plan is, and they're all working collectively as a group to make sure that plan happens.
Right. Tim, we're going to take a very short break right now. Would you like to explain exactly what they'll get by calling for the retirement blueprint?
Yes. If some of these subjects we just talked about, things like estate planning and tax planning, are on your mind, we have designed and created and trademarked a process called the retirement blueprint. Give us a call. Let us sit down with you and put an income plan together, an investment plan together, healthcare and long-term care, estate planning, tax planning, all with a complimentary review. Give us a call today at 855-684-3485.
More of the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton when we get back after this. Please call the phone number, or you can use that QR code down on the bottom of the screen with your phone. Open it up to the camera function, wait for it to populate, click on it, it'll take you right over to Tim's website. More with Tim Lofton right after this.
Do you feel like you're stuck when it comes to retirement, with more questions than answers? For example, do you understand the impact inflation will have on your savings? Are you prepared if something happens to your spouse? How will you replace their income? Is your estate plan up to date? Would a nursing home stay potentially wipe out your retirement savings? If any of these questions are on your mind, we would like to invite you to sit down with one of our financial retirement advisors and discover our trademark process, the Retirement Blueprint. Any successful retirement starts with a plan. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axim Planning and Wealth. Every week on the program, we try to address retirement planning solutions. Tim, we've got a tough topic here, but we want to address all parts of our audience. And it's wonderful if you're going into retirement with your spouse, with your kids and your grandkids and a big, large family around you. But there are those who go into retirement on their own. There are those who either have had their spouse pass away, they weren't married, or they've gone through divorce. And we address everyone on our show. So whether you have a spouse or whether you're going to retirement alone, we want everyone to have retirement planning ideas. What are some of the things, if we're going in retirement single, that you're more concerned about?
So, I really am passionate about this, and I know it's a difficult conversation, but it doesn't have to be. There's a real positive in talking about this subject, because it's not about what you've lost. It's about us giving back freedom and choice and dignity, and making sure that we can come alongside people and give them the planning they need to move forward. That's really what it's about, not where they are, but where they need to go and how they can get there. And
right.
So as we think about, some of the things that happen through divorce or loss of spouse, one of the big ones is income. If both people had a pension and both people had Social Security and a spouse passes away, there could be a significant decrease in income. And a lot of times, there's kind of this misnomer out there that, if there's one of us instead of two of us, that it's a lot less expensive, and that's just not the case.
Right.
We see that over and over again, right? That the average spend of a single person versus a married couple is still about 80% of two versus
I was
one.
going to take a guess around 70%.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have heating and air conditioning costs. You still have to go get food. You're still going to have energy costs and all that. And it's not that all of a sudden, because someone else isn't around, that your costs are cut in half. Now, there are a few things that are taken away from you, such as Social Security. What's the difference between passing away and divorce with Social Security?
Well, with divorce, you're going to get typically either your Social Security or half of your spouse's. That's kind of your choice there. And it really is the same divorce or a spouse passing away. There is ways to look at this from a planning standpoint to make sure that if we know that there's a potential of that income going away, that we've prepared for it in a plan to make sure we can replace it. And we've talked about before of people losing their pension, and not that happens a lot, but sometimes it does. Mm-hmm. And we have created a pension backup program where if something happens to the pension or the spouse, we have a stream of income that we can turn on to replace that income. And that really is a key component.
Okay. Now, are we talking about fixed kind of insurance products like that? Is this something that when we go through a divorce, is this something we can take with us? It's got to get complicated.
It does get complicated. And, divorce is a different animal altogether, because first of all, you don't know what you're going to get until the end. Right, and so it's a difficult,
and it costs you quite amount of money to figure out what that's going to be to begin with.
What I would tell you is this: if you've recently gone through a divorce, or you're through a divorce, and you're kind of throwing your hands up in the air and say, you know what, I don't know what to do. Maybe your spouse was the one that handled all the money stuff, and you're sitting there looking at statements, and you don't know what to do or where to turn. Give us a call. Let us sit down with you. We have done this for 30 years with people just like you. We can help you navigate, understand what you have, understand what you're paying for it, and make sure that we get you back on the path of enjoying retirement and enjoying your life.
And something that and thank you so much for that. I think another thing, though, that we can do, so if we're planning on retirement on our own, I think something that we really do want to address is the long-term care. Now, the good here is that we can take a look at all of our resources,
right,
and say, how can we maximize this for ourselves, but also to set it up in advance in case I need to be taken care of. So
exactly.
These are things, once again, we can do through estate planning.
Right.
Either would we set this up through a trust or an annuity with long-term care rider? How can we set up for our own long-term care possibly down the road?
So there's multiple ways that you can go about long-term care planning, and there's not a right or wrong choice here. It really just comes down to, really the assets somebody has and what their goals are. Certainly there's the aspect of being self-insured. In other words, I simply have enough income or enough money that I could cover that cost out of pocket. That's a very small amount of people. Most folks don't have those level of extra funds. But sometimes we have assets. We had a client that owned an apartment building, and the apartment building gave her extra income. She didn't really need the income per se, but it was there, and that was her long-term care plan. The value of that property was like $750,000. She said, if I go into a nursing home, we'll sell the apartment building, and that'll be my money. So that's an example of being self-insured.
Yeah.
If I don't have that as an option, maybe I'm utilizing what's called an irrevocable trust, where I'm gifting assets that I want to protect outside of my estate. After 5 years, they're protected from Medicaid, and so that may be a solution. And you know what, Spike? Sometimes the solution is, you know what? I don't care. And I know that seems harsh, but there's some people who say, you know what? If it goes away, it goes away. And that doesn't make it wrong. We may not like it as a planner, but the point is this. If you're trying to figure out the nursing home thing, you have probably an outcome that you want to avoid. And whatever that outcome is, that's where we come in. We can sit down and figure out a plan based on what you have asset-wise and what you have desire-wise, and put a plan together. Maybe it's a trust, maybe it's self-insured, maybe it's doing nothing. But being intentional about your decision is the key here.
Tim, I also know this as well. We can talk about the finances, we can talk about the long-term care, the income crashing, but really it's the emotional impact.
Right.
And I know you've received those phone calls. I've either lost my partner or we need to work on something where I'm going to be on my own. And you're there for those phone calls. And hopefully with having a plan, you can say, you don't have to worry about the finances first. Let's take care of you.
And that's where that plan feels so good, because we can sit down and simply walk them through that plan again, remind them of what the plan is, and it takes a lot of that worry out of the situation that's already emotionally fueled.
Right. So folks, if you haven't started your own retirement blueprint, if you haven't sat down with a financial advisor to take you through all of the steps, make sure that you call the phone number here. We have less than 30 seconds, Tim. Tell them what are the 5 things that you'll start the conversation with on meeting 1.
Those 5 cornerstones that we're going to discuss on meeting 1 is developing an income plan, tax plan, estate plan, healthcare long-term care plan, and of course the wealth management side with our wealth management team.
Thank you, Tim. Every single week we address retirement planning solutions for you. Thank you for watching the Retirement Blueprint Show. Of course, you can call the phone number that you see right down here, or you can also use that QR code. Open up your phone to the camera function, point it at the black and white box, click on it. It'll take you right over to Tim's website. You can schedule an appointment there. This has been the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton. I'm Spike Spengel. He and I will both be back again together next week.